Most people are relatively unhappy with where they are, with their job, with their money, with their family life, with their relationships. There's this general sense of not quite feeling like they've achieved what they could have achieved. Yet in most cases, they've done exactly what they were told to do. The easiest example would be somebody who's in a corporate career. They've done everything correctly, but they're massively in debt. They've got huge mortgages. They're under stress. Now the family has expanded. They're thinking about moving again. They've got a second car. It never seems to end. And they literally, they question, where did this go wrong? When did I sign up for this?
How did you rethink your life? Because you were a corporate guy,
Yes.
you lived very traditionally, and now you are the global entrepreneur who
Yeah.
started from scratch, and you're sharing the big stages, and you are an investor in different companies as
Yeah.
well, and you achieve this freedom. So how did you achieve that? The family, the culture programs you, and when you try to do things differently, they push against you. They even make fun of you, or they try to stop you. That's great for you, Irish guy, and the American guys, and rich dad, and the British guys, but we are on a small island, and we've been through a totally different set of circumstances. Our parents have been through invasion and became refugees, and then we had the bank crash and a whole series of crises. Do we have the same opportunities as the American guy or the Irish guy who is like the big shot and coming to our country?
Well, I would say study Irish history. Whatever you're going to start, make a decision that you're not going to stop until it works.
I have with me here today in Cyprus, all the way from Ireland, my good friend Paul Mahony, who is also a very well-known international speaker, an online entrepreneur, 9 times best-selling author. I have one of his books here with me. Paul is a great guy and also an expert and leader by example. He lives what he teaches in entrepreneurship, self-mastery, productivity, and inspirational leadership. As a speaker, he has shared the stage with every big name you can think of in personal development and entrepreneurship, from Tony Robbins to Gary Vaynerchuk to Deepak Chopra, like anyone you can think, you name them, and Paul has shared the stage with them globally. He is known as Mr. Rethink, the founder of Rethink Academy, and also financial freedom, with the word fun, and this is for children. And his best known books are the one I have here, Rethink Social Media, Rethink Time Management, Rethink Planner. He provides an entire Rethink productivity system that enables people to create incredible results from any starting point in their life. I love spending time with him because I always have things to learn from Paul. He has an inspiring story, knowledge, and a very inspiring lifestyle. And he's a real deal digital nomad. And we're so happy to have him in Cyprus from time to time over the past 13 years, even though we met online 2021 during the time when there was this global crisis happening. And then he told me, I have a business base in Cyprus. And we met in person in 2022. So, Paul, what brings you to Cyprus? You're fresh from Ireland. You arrived this morning.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me here. Delighted to be here. Well, I like you mentioned, I have a business in Cyprus. I have some staff in Cyprus, and I come here multiple times per year. This time I'm here with the family because we're going to be over for Easter, the Easter holidays.
Okay.
So it's the perfect place to combine business and pleasure.
How come you chose Cyprus? Because talking about, location, I guess, but when I talk to, let's say, accountants in Cyprus, they say that Ireland is a competitor. So how come you chose Cyprus to have a business base here?
Yeah, great question. It was actually nothing to do with business opportunities in the beginning. It was actually the very first event I went to in Dublin about how to make money on the internet. There was a speaker who was a quarter Cypriot. His name was Mark Anastasi.
Oh, yes, common friend.
Yeah. And
I ran a seminar with him and I went to his retreat.
Yeah, and he had a picture of himself on in Cyprus.
I remember those pictures because
Yes.
I had them it was sort of my vision boards.
Yes.
I was watching Mark Anastasi before I met him, the laptop guy, the
Yeah.
laptop millionaire.
Laptop millionaire. And
So he inspired me too.
yeah, he had a picture of up in Aphrodite Hills.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember looking at that in 2009 going, wow, Cyprus looks amazing. It was just at the start of a few online marketing people starting to live in Cyprus. And like right away, to your point, I put it on my vision board that, okay, I want to be able to live out of Cyprus. So there was to the essence of the origin of me thinking about it was just, I was really inspired from what Mark had said.
We
about
have
living
a
in Cyprus.
common inspiration here,
There you
Mark
go.
Anastasi.
Yes.
We have another common mentor, I think, Di Martini,
Yes.
as well, who was in Cyprus. But I didn't know we had this other common thing with Mark because he inspired me too. And then I went to one of his seminars in Cyprus, and then we collaborated, and we did some things together. So if you're watching this, hi from us. So what do you love about Cyprus, and what frustrates you about Cyprus since you're coming for so many years, since 2012?
I love the people and the weather in that order. The people are extremely warm, as is the weather, until it gets too hot in the summer. So that's the two downsides, I would say, are from July onwards, where we hang out. It gets too crazy. There's too many people and it's too hot because I have two young girls, and it's just when it gets over 40 degrees, it's too hot for us. And the other part of it is it's 4 3/4 hours from Ireland, so it is a long flight.
I guess if you're
from
traveling
door to
with a
door.
family
Yes.
as well, kids.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's 2 hours to the airport. And look, these are small problems. So it's like when we arrive, it's like everything is forgotten about in terms of the negatives. It's amazing. We love being here.
I mean, you work from anywhere. So recently you've been in Asia, you are in Ireland a lot. If you would move permanently to Cyprus, if you would decide, which is your favorite place? And
In
why
Cyprus?
why would you-
Proteras. We love
Proteras?
Proteras.
Okay.
Yeah, literally from the first week, we rented a place in Proteras and we just fell in love with the place. We met some amazing people there that made us feel very welcome. And very quickly, we just really settled in there, and we use that as our base. I mean, we go around and visit all the other places on a regular enough routine. But yeah, Proteras for us would be where I know a lot of
it's very
Cypriots don't
interesting
think
because like every city is different.
Yeah.
So you're known as Mr. Rethink. Rethink social media, rethink productivity, rethink life. So what does it mean to rethink the way we approach life and business, especially in 2025? What is your philosophy?
Sure. Well, what I have found with most people that I've had a chance to deal with one-to-one over the past number of years, and I'm at this nearly 2 decades, is that most people are relatively unhappy with where they are, with their job, with their money, with their family life, with their relationships. There's this general sense of not quite feeling like they've achieved what they could have achieved. Yet in most cases, they've done exactly what they were told to do. The easiest example would be somebody who's in a corporate career. They've done everything correctly, but they're massively in debt. They've got huge mortgages. They're under stress. Now the family has expanded. They're thinking about moving again. They've got a second car. It never seems to end. And they literally, they question, where did this go wrong? When did I sign up for this? Where, there's so much stress in our lives. And it's like, if we move away from a sense of peace and happiness to actually, you know what, we'll have to enjoy that when we're old. We just have to hustle now and just get through this. And we're surrounded by people that do the same. So what I have found is, and I literally consider myself like the poster child of traditional education.
I would love to know your story as well, because your story is very interesting.
Yes, absolutely.
How did you rethink your life? Because you were a corporate guy, you lived very traditionally, and now you are the global entrepreneur who started from scratch, and you're sharing the big stages, and you are an investor in different companies as well, and you achieve this freedom. So how did you achieve that?
Yeah, so I reached that stage that I just described of frustration, stress in 2009.
What were you into before doing
I worked as an engineer in medical devices, a US multinational, Boston Scientific in Ireland. And I'd been there 9 years. I was a director. I had bought 2 houses right at the worst possible timing because that's what everybody was supposed to do. It wasn't a bubble, or so we were told. And suddenly things changed, and I found myself hundreds of thousands of euros in debt. Not quite overnight, but over a period of months. And I felt I had done everything correctly. And I didn't know back then that the word mortgage comes from the Latin word mortir, meaning death. Like mortgage literally means debt until death. We can see why mortgage brokers are happy we don't speak Latin anymore. But, even if it was the debt until death broker, we might question, maybe I should think twice about doing this. But anyway, I was in this situation where I had massive negative equity. I had a degree in biochemistry. I had a diploma in chemical engineering. I was a project management professional. I had a master's in business administration. So I had an MBA.
Wow.
And I was hundreds of thousands in debt. And I was, everybody was telling me how proud I should be of myself. I said, well, hang on a second. I don't own my car. I don't own either of these houses. I'm sleeping in the single room to allow myself to rent out the other 2 so that I can afford the mortgage. And it just seemed like if you spoke about it too loud, people immediately respond with, but everybody else is in the same boat. What's the problem? I said, well, I'm in debt. They said, oh, no, that doesn't count. So what do you mean it doesn't count? Well, it's your mortgage. Everybody has one. So you find that the more you speak up about these kind of things, the more you get pushed back with the everybody's in this situation. So let's not talk about it. And that's what I was getting to, is this element of, well, what if we just took a step out for a moment and just rethought about this situation, had a little bit of a rethink and said, how did I end up where I'm at now? And if I keep doing exactly what I did, what's the outcome likely to be? And as John Assaraf, my friend, says from The Secret, he says, if you keep doing what you always did, you'll keep getting what you always got. And most people just nod their head and go, yeah, it's like what Einstein says about insanity, doing the same thing every day and expecting different results. Everyone goes, yeah, smart. And yet that's exactly what we do. But what I found is if you rethink a lot of what you're doing, there isn't an enormous change that's really required in many instances to get the results that you actually want. It's just that we're surrounded by groupthink as opposed to rethink. And it's much more comfortable to stay within that group where people are ultimately there trying to protect you and they love you and they're afraid of you to, stray in case you get attacked or leave the tribe. But ultimately, it's the outliers that we find end up becoming the entrepreneurs and end up, where we hear these success stories. But what's really difficult, or I found really difficult, was how do you go from, following the norm and sticking between the lines and doing everything you're supposed to do and get your promotion year on year or get your pay rise and everybody's telling you you're doing great. But the reality is your net worth as a 30-year-old is less than any 10-year-old in any country. And when I ask that to audiences globally, it really kind of resets them for a moment. When I say, think about any 10-year-old you know. Now think about any 30-year-old you know. Who has more money? Who is financially better off? And then they realize, oh, it's the 10-year-old because they're not in debt. We have bought into this idea that the only way to progress financially in life is to go backwards first.
Yeah, Cyprus the same. And we got into very big trouble, especially after the bank crash. Banks took our money as well. We were left with debt, a bad economy. And there's still this mindset going around that you need to get a job. Like the family, the culture programs you. And when you try to do things differently, they push against you. They may even make fun of you or they try to stop you. And the right thing is still to get a good job.
Well, I understand that because I used to make that argument when I was in corporate because you can easily say 96% of business owners fail. When I was doing my MBA, when we did a module on entrepreneurship, I was like, what's the point in doing this? What a waste. Like, why would I want a 4% chance of success? So I get it from both sides. So it's really interesting. And I guess I have a lot more empathy now from anybody who's a teacher. Like both my parents were teachers. So you can imagine that. I mean, if there's anybody listening here today, they'll know, or anybody that's a son or daughter of a teacher, there's no difference between the classroom at home and the classroom at school. It's just same people, different environment. But everything was about passing exams, going to college, getting yourself a permanent job. You might remember those. They were all the rage about 20 years ago.
They're still the rage in Cyprus.
Okay. And so I followed along, but everybody is doing their bit the best they can do it. I've never met a teacher who doesn't want a better education for kids, who doesn't want the kids to do amazing in life, but they're working within very strict parameters from an educational system that's hundreds of years old. And it's the big rethink for me is, rather than looking at all the problems, because there's an infinite amount, is if you just kind of take responsibility around, well, what can I do? What can I do without waiting for the system to change? What can I do by moving into a more kind of positive energy, as in specifically, okay, what could I actually start today that could make a difference for me? And then maybe I could inspire others, rather than, oh, the system is a problem. And because it's easy to find, misery loves company. And it's very easy to find people who will literally, you'll all be dragged down into this negative space of, I don't know if you have read the book Power versus Force with David Hawkins, where he talks about... I
think you told me about that book and I still haven't read it.
Yeah, well, but this energy level under 200 where, people are in this fear, anxiety, and it's quite tangible. You can almost feel it with people, certainly in rooms and events that I go to, even some people you touch, you could almost feel your energy being sucked away in certain instances. And it's tough on people, and the key thing is having empathy, I guess, for, whatever position somebody is in. That's probably the best lot that they could get at this moment in time. But having then the awareness that, everybody can be helped if they want help. Everybody can rethink their situation if they're willing to take a bit of ownership, take a bit of responsibility. I like to think that, anybody that you meet, you could have ended up in exactly that same scenario. But the question is now, what do you do about it? Because it's easy to judge.
So how do we break through from that situation where we are in this programmed thinking, everyone around us is following this route, they're complaining every day about the salary, they're looking for a better job, everyone expects you to get a better job, the economy is not so good, there's a cost of living crisis. So how do we make that shift? What made you make that shift and go into entrepreneurship and actually create great success? Because there are failures as well.
Yes.
And it might take years, but you need to make that shift. So what's created that shift within you? What made you decide?
A number of things. I would say if I go back, I didn't realize it while it was happening, but looking back now, I started reading specific books. All of Robert Kiyosaki's books on Rich Dad, Poor Dad, they had an incredible impact on the way I viewed the world. I suddenly felt like, oh, I am trapped. And, oh, that's how the system is designed. And, oh, this is the way out of it. Like assets or anything that put money into your pocket, liabilities or anything that take money out of it. And I was like, oh, what an interesting concept. How do I build some assets? How do I reduce my liabilities? So I bought those books, and while I was in my job at the time, I started to read those. There's a saying I like to come back to a lot when I talk about BS, and I ask audiences, what does BS stand for? And people usually say bull, S-H-I-T, as you can imagine. I said, no, how dare you? It's actually belief systems. Because BS, a lot of people can use BS to get stuck in it and it stinks and they just, cover themselves in it. Other people take the best out of their BS and use it as fertilizer to grow.
So it's about changing our belief systems, it's about doing the internal work, the reprogramming.
Yes.
So did you work a lot on reprogramming your mind?
Not intentionally. I was just reading books and listening to I stopped listening to the radio. I started, if I was driving or any opportunity I had, I would just start listening to people who were decades ahead of me in their business or in their mindset. And just there's an amazing amount that's crystallized in these books that people have written, like all amazing knowledge for something that costs like €5. And the more I listened to it, it took time, but the more I started to become open to another perspective. I have to say, as a corporate guy, I was so closed. I'd made it, I had the MBA, I was driving the BMW. Yeah, I know I'd no money, but, I was showing off and flashing like I had. So it was I totally get people that are on that side or, striving for that. But ultimately, I remember one day looking at my boss and then my boss's boss and then realizing, wow, this is just one big conveyor belt of you're looking at your boss's job, he's looking at his boss's job. She's looking at her boss's job, and on it goes. And the higher up the ladder they went, the more stressed they became, the less they saw of their children, the more often they had to move abroad to a country that they didn't want to be in necessarily. And I just started to, so I went to this conference at 30 years of age in Dublin, in Ireland, and literally some people were walking out of the room. There was American speakers. Irish people, like Cypriots, are very skeptical. I mean, literally, people were walking out. One speaker said, "Hey, turn to the person next to you and tell them they're awesome." We're like, "No, we don't do that." Another guy said, "Stand up and massage the shoulders of the person next to you." We're like, well, we don't touch our own family, let alone strangers. So it was like, people were like, we don't do this. This is like the secret stuff. But here's the thing. The third speaker got up on stage and he said, "This is funny. You think we're here to brainwash you." He said, "The irony is you're so brainwashed, you actually don't see what's going on." And he said, "This is the facts. You believe that wealth is connected to intelligence." And he said, "Let me explain. You measure intelligence in letters." And we're all like, "What does that mean?" He said, you spend your first 20 years of your life accumulating letters after your name, qualifications, BSc, BA, MBA, MA, PhD, professor, whatever it is. And he said, "Well, I found as a high school dropout a much more accurate measure of wealth rather than letters after my name are numbers in my bank account." And that statement just hit me at my core. Somebody had finally verbalized what I had been unable to understand, this enigma. Because every time I wanted more money, my boss said, "Do the next qualification, do the next qualification, so you'd get 4% pay rise." But I was going broker, like literally going broker. And suddenly this guy said, well, then he actually said, "How does a professor get to the school in the morning?" He said, "He cycles." He said, "I've got 7 Lamborghinis." He said, "Who would you prefer to learn about money from?" And I remember thinking, this guy's an arsehole. But there's a really strong point that he's just made there. We're assuming that wealth is in here when actually wealth is measured in many other ways. So that was it. I joined 3 programs to learn about how to make money on the internet from 3 complete strangers. And within 4 months of starting, I was earning more than a decade in a corporate career. And then it doubled the next month, it doubled the next month, it doubled the next month, it doubled the next month. And that this was from social media and Twitter and not having my own products and services. And then I got invited by Mark Anastasi to speak on a stage because I was proof that if you just sit, listen, and you're coachable and do what you're told, anything is possible. I didn't really know what I was doing, but people trusted me because they could see I didn't have the Ferrari or the Lamborghini. I was still living in the semi-detached house that I bought, and I was still in the single room. But even I was wondering every month, is the rug going to be pulled under me? Does the money stop? Because it's like the Shawshank Redemption. You're like institutionalized, where they'd say it's one of the worst addictions of society, the addiction to a salary. And when you don't have that certainty that something's coming in, but you have the certainty that everything is going out, it really makes you feel kind of this level of stress. So I didn't talk to my family about it for a long time. But I went to a Tony Robbins seminar and quit my job.
I think that's a very good idea to not talk to the family because they try to inflict their own beliefs and they think they're helping. Family, friends.
They're trying to help. I mean, like we would try to help our own. It's a case of everybody has their own perspective. And, the older I get, the more I kind of see where everybody's coming from. Ultimately, they want to protect you. It comes from...
but then you go home, let's say person in Cyprus decides to start an online business and use social media, and then they go home and the father, especially the father figure, is the one that is traditional and they try to always put them down. And psychologically, you are influenced even if you don't even realize it because you grew up in that way. So I think sometimes talking less when you're creating might be helpful. That's what I learned now later on in life. Not to talk much about what I'm doing because if I'm certain about what I'm doing and I have my mentors and my network and, I know I want to move this way, don't talk to people who don't believe in that because they're going to try to put their beliefs on you and put you down energetically.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, our parents were born, lived through the Second World War.
Boomers.
When you think about it. So, I mean, they can only give advice based on what they experienced. Like my parents, their first house, they got a mortgage for less than 10,000 euros. So, what they were brought up in, the system actually worked for them.
Yes.
It's now when the average house price is like 300,000 plus, and the salaries certainly haven't gone up that amount, 300x. There's a challenge, right? There's a problem there. But again, if people just could have empathy as to why their dad or mom is having that view and know that it's coming from a place of love and they're not doing it to hurt you, they think that, you know, they can draw on wisdom that maybe you don't have. And so I just generally, I've learned the older you get, just agree, say, I thank you for your view, I'll keep it on board, and then just move on to a different conversation.
Yeah, don't push against it.
No.
What would you say to a Cypriot who is watching right now? And I do carry this belief as well. That's great for you, Irish guy, and the American guys, and rich dad, and the British guys. But we are on a small island, and we've been through a totally different set of circumstances. Our parents have been through invasion and became refugees, and then we had the bank crash and a whole series of crises. Do we have the same opportunities as the American guy or the Irish guy who is like the big shot and coming to our country?
Yeah. Well, I would say study Irish history, right? Because we're on a tiny little island. We also are occupied on the north, still are. We've had 800 years plus of, invading force there. You know, we went through a famine that I think is pretty globally well known at the end of the 1800s. We had our own bank crash, not too many years in the difference from Cyprus. So we're very, very similar situations there. But the thing about all of this is you get to choose your identity. So if you decide that you're Cypriot, that's great. But does that mean you have to take on their economy? Does that mean you have to take on all of the ups and downs? Or do you just say, well, I live in Cyprus, I'm a proud Cypriot, but you can separate maybe your day-to-day emotions around what you can do and the responsibility you can take. Like John DiMartini, who you mentioned earlier, always talked about just think of yourself as a global citizen and that every country is just a different room in your house. And I loved when he said that. I was like, oh, wow, because immediately you have more empathy for everybody. You see that, okay, well, everybody's going to bring something slightly different here. But I would understand completely where that Cypriot viewer is coming from, because when I started, I immediately decided not to focus on an Irish market. I didn't look for any Irish clients, any Irish buyers, because we have begrudgery. We don't like people getting too above themselves.
We have that in Cyprus
too. Of course, yeah, of course you do. So, but the beauty of it is you literally can make a decision on your laptop or on your phone not to target a local audience. To be global.
I mean, everyone in Cyprus speaks English, or we can easily learn. I mean, so you can make the decision to be online, to be global, that your clients will be international. And you know what happens when Cypriots see you succeeding internationally? Then everyone wants to be your client, because now you have succeeded internationally. When you're trying to make it locally, not only the market is very small, but everyone is like coming against you when you start rising a bit. There is the envy there. So they push against you in so many ways. And there are, of course, some systems locally, political systems, people helping each other, the wealthy families, cartels. These systems exist. So you might get disappointed if you're trying to do it strictly locally and you don't have the backup from the family or the political system. So I guess the advice is to maybe focus online and focus on a global audience and build a business that can attract international clients.
Yeah, it depends what you want. I mean, everybody will have their own wants and desires. So, it depends what type of lifestyle you want to live. What kind of, do you want to have a job? Do you want to work for yourself? Do you want to work for somebody else? Do you want to work as part of a bigger organization? But to your point, there's a well-known quotation of an expert is an ordinary person living a long way from home. And I always loved that, because it seemed like the further you travel from home, the more people respected you. And, it's very true. And I think when people start that on the internet and start to realize that you can just as easily have a client from Australia or Papua New Guinea or Argentina as opposed to, Paphos or Nicosia, it's... Yeah,
I've seen that too.
It's free.
I mean, Even when I traveled and met those people in person, and I thought it was going to be so different, Malaysians were going to be different, or Singaporeans were going to be different. People are the same everywhere. And my clients can be anywhere. And I find that there are certain people who like to learn from me, let's say in the United States even, because I am the person who made it from a small island, and maybe they're in a small city, a small town, and they connect with that. So for us who are teaching things. So your clients can be anywhere, really. So it depends on what you choose to do as a business. So you teach social media and many other things, productivity. So how can somebody who wants to get started now, what would you advise them to do in 2025 and moving ahead with all the noise now on social media and AI? How do we rethink social media now? How do we get started if somebody either is starting right now or wants to grow their business now through social media? Good question.
So, I mean, what I suggest to people is whatever you're going to start, make a decision that you're not going to stop until it works. That's probably the most important thing, is that, okay, you're not going to try this. Have you ever tried to sit down or tried to stand up? There's no such thing as try. Trying is giving up in advance. That's what I consider it. That the word try just drives me mad. It's like, why are you trying it? You either do it or you don't. Like let's step in or stay where you are. But so just make a decision. Okay, I'm going to stick with this until it works. So how do you commit to that? You go to your local accountant and you open a company. You open a company immediately. I don't care what you're going to do, because online business, that's enough for now. But open it and go online and buy yourself a nameplate that has your name at the end of it. Then it says CEO. And you put that on your desk at home, because now you have taken on an identity of a CEO. And you know what a CEO doesn't do? They don't complain every day. They don't show up late. They don't blame other people. They don't worry about all these other things. They're in control of the vision, the purpose, the mission of what this organization is. And they are the people that are the lifeblood of this company. So when people say, "Oh, I'll wait till setting it up," they're already admitting defeat. So you put that, and the minute that nameplate goes up, you go, "Okay, I'm responsible for the company." You have a separate legal entity. The thing that most people don't realize when they have a business is immediately you will save yourself thousands of euros every single year for the rest of your life, because now you have a home-based business, which means you can write off, and I'm a qualified financial advisor as well, by the way. You can start writing off portions of your home electricity bills, your heating bills, your Wi-Fi bills, your cooling bills, your phone bills, your laptop, your new upgrades on your phones. If you hire your children, and I don't know why you wouldn't, their technology, their phones. So it's easy point and complain, but the minute you start looking at what's possible by just having a business, and the first question you're going to ask is, why isn't everybody else doing this? Completely the wrong question to ask, but we ask it because we've heard it forever. 0.26% of the entire planet are millionaires. 0.26%. Yet the first thing we ask when we hear of an opportunity is, well, why are the 99% not doing it? It's the strangest question. Like, the question should be, what are the 0.26% doing? They're not any better than us. It's just, if you want to make strives towards financial freedom and improving yourself financially.
And I was looking at some stats recently, because some people might say, oh, they inherited wealth. No, around 1% they're self-made. Just to move.
And I think what's the number? There's 1,200 new millionaires created every day in the US alone. That's all online. 1,200 new every single day. So there's a lot. I mean, you could say, imagine if that was the headline on the news every day in Cyprus, and another 1,411 people became millionaires today. Imagine how children and teenagers are going to grow up. But we don't have influence on that. So what do you do? Well, you can check the facts for yourself. But more importantly, set the entity up, become the CEO. You mentioned failure earlier. You need to rethink failure. There's no such thing as failure being the opposite of success. Failure is a precursor to success. It's success part 1, success part 2, success part 3. You don't know what success looks like until you start to work through and meander through, like the river going to the sea. It doesn't go in a straight line. It always kind of curves. And that's exactly what those steps are. So, and the moment you go down there and you realize there's thousands of euros in savings, it's real money every year, it kind of changes the dynamic for a lot of people, because the other thing that is in common for everybody in the globe right now is the smartphone, right? The greatest human addiction of all time that nobody speaks of as an addiction because we think of addiction as a negative. But like when I was touring with Robert Kiyosaki last year, actually speaking with him again in 2 weeks, he said, this guy is so important because I've been talking about assets and liabilities for decades. But anytime I talked about assets, I had to talk about property, which ruled most people out. He said, now people literally carry around with them either their greatest asset or their greatest liability. And for, I would say, 99% of people, this is your greatest liability right now. It is a vacuum for money, time, energy, focus. And again, you'll naturally say, well, what's the problem? Everybody else is doing it. Right? You're right. Everybody else is doing it. But it could be your greatest asset. It could be literally worth its weight in gold to you if you start to change your relationship with your phone, where instead of it being your compass, where you follow it around deciding, what does my phone want me to do next, you can actually use this as a broadcasting system to people all over the world. So there literally are no excuses to be made if you enter that mindset of, okay, I'm going to open a business. I am the CEO. Here it is. Let's get to work. Let's see. And from there, so I haven't even got to what to do yet, but
yeah,
you're already thousands of euros up,
get the education, be around the right people. That's why we are educators, because we saw the difference in our lives of being educated. Be around the right networks. Get an accountant.
Early.
Because that's very important, how you manage your finances, to manage them properly, and create some new habits. And then I see in Cyprus, because again, they might say, American millionaires, we're in Cyprus. But I see this locally when somebody, like one Cypriot, succeeds in something from Cyprus, it started happening now, just using the internet, then this person becomes the example, because nobody believed it until this one person did it. So if you're looking for success stories, yes, find the success stories around you. If there are no success stories, because from my seminars, even like starting 10 years ago, organizing seminars in Cyprus, I have seen people start from zero in Cyprus and become YouTubers with 100,000, 1 million, 2.5 million followers, just from that couple of seminars that they came. And before that, nobody was an example. So I've seen these people just shift their mindset, become the YouTubers, and now they're inspiring everyone around them. But those were the first who got inspired by themselves, and they didn't want to see an example locally. So you can be that person who doesn't need to see another example locally in your small islands to convince yourself. Just become the example yourself. Just get the education, get the mindset. That's what I believe, because I've seen it in real life happening. The people are only convinced when they see, somebody around them doing it.
And that's understandable, though, because ever since we were born, every time we wanted to make a big leap, like let's say going from crawling to walking, you looked at the people around you and you asked them, how do I do it? I mean, you couldn't verbalize it, but you're like, and then you say, oh, they're all on their legs. So you started, they knew the answers. So you went up to the couch and you pushed yourself up onto your legs. And then when you learned to speak, you were like, oh, you learned from them. They knew how. And then when you wanted money, you asked your parents, how do I get money? And they give you pocket money in exchange for chores. Then you said, well, how do I make money and move out? Oh, you have to get a job. So you always look to those around you to get the answer to that question, which I'm not a big fan of, how. And then the challenge is, as an adult, is you now want to, let's say, go to that next stage in whatever it is, and you're going to go to the same people again, the people that are closest to you, and you're going to ask the same question again, which is how. So now you're going to get all those belief systems mirrored back to you, and that goes to your point earlier. But the question you should be asking is who? Is who already knows all this information? Who can I just literally copy and paste what they've already done? And whether they're in Cyprus or in Ireland or in Iceland.
I didn't have anyone locally, so I looked for mentors abroad.
Absolutely.
And, to develop into the mentor locally. But there was nobody here, so I looked abroad. Mark was in Cyprus. We talked about Mark at the beginning. So I went to Mark. So I know that you're passionate about children's education and you have the company that you created. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah. So what was interesting is, like, I've been teaching entrepreneurs since 2009. And back in 2014, one father brought his kid salmon to the workshop because the babysitter cancelled. And I remember the dad just said, look, play with the computer or whatever, play your games. And I could see he was tuned in. So he put up his hand and he said, can I share something? I said, sure. And he said, I've just made $190. And like all the adults were like, what? And I said, how long did that take,
the
Salman?
child was sitting like there in the corner, but listening.
Yeah, he was listening. And so I said, how long did that take? He said, 11 minutes. And like the adults were almost horrified. And they said, what did you do? He said, I did what the old man said. He was talking about me. And that's when I realized I am teaching the wrong generation, because as an adult, all you worry about is looking foolish. What will other people think? All these kind of things. As you know, if you learn how to drive later in life, it becomes more difficult because you stop focusing on the skills and you start focusing on what everybody else is thinking about things. But I always remind people, you were that child once upon a time. Like it's in there. Like that 5-year-old you was still there somewhere. So I decided, okay, I'm going to teach children about business and money through a mechanism that they'll enjoy, which was animation, cartoons, gamification, eventually onto the metaverse. And I invested over €1 million into it so that kids would never have to go through the challenges that we had. And so many of the issues that are going to come up, I'm sure you talk about it regularly in your podcast, but across the globe, the way to solve it is get to children and teenagers younger. And I know a lot of people will push back on that, and there's a lot of again, reflection of the adults' perspectives on money being, pushed onto the kids. Keep them away from money. It's toxic. Keep as long as possible. Let's keep them away from that. But actually, the earlier you empower them to understand that money's not about what you can get, but what you can give. Entrepreneurship is about adding value to you, so you can add value to others. And we've even done it in a way where any child that signs up, or any teenager that signs up, we sponsor a child or teen in different schools in Africa, so they can see what a couple of €100 a week means to a kid in Africa, as opposed to someone in Europe where it's, it's nice, they can buy some extra clothes, but over there it's life-changing, like literally life-changing. So, that's something I would love to figure out a way to work, that I could get that to all Cypriot kids and teens, because of where they're at right now.
That
but
would be
for free, ideally.
Important because, I don't have my own children, but I have kids in my environment, family environment, and now they're becoming teenagers, some of them, and I see how much influence I have on them with what I do and my lifestyle, but I also can definitely feel the resistance from the parents, and they're scared sometimes for their kids to have too much influence from me because they want to put them in the system, and I'm not scared at all. I want to show them what is possible, and I know that kids are so wise when you teach them early how to be careful with the internet, how to use social media, how to use the internet, the mindset, they absorb really fast. So every time I get a chance, I do give them this information. I know it's going to stick, and maybe in the future they're going to realize, even though their parents might not be so open. But where can people find this platform? Yeah, so just before I'm going to step back a little bit there, because you're absolutely right. There can be a resistance from parents. However, I figured this out in 2 years later, 2017. Literally, the people I designed it for didn't want it. They're like, no, I don't want my kids to learn about money. So it ended up being the rich parents that wanted it for their kids so they wouldn't lose money. And, rather than getting upset about that. And then actually, I remember when I brought the book out to the mediator, who are you to teach my kids about money? I said, what do you mean? I said, how are you qualified to talk? I said, well, I've made, tens of millions of my business. So, and I remember thinking, oh, wow, you forget quickly. So what they meant was you haven't passed an exam to be qualified for that
to teach. So that's why
you have so many diplomas. You have an MBA
they were correct, though. They were correct. So I went back and I became a qualified financial advisor. So rather than fighting them, I said, fair point.
Here is a certification.
Fair point. Let me go back. And I actually said, yeah, it's a fair point. Okay, let me get qualified, because we all have our connections to money. They're all very different. But so we have set it up in a way that we want the parents to work with it. So here's the thing. The parents should be working with the kids on creating the business. So the parents can control the money. And they pay your kids a salary. There's absolutely no issue with that. So you full control. And here's the irony. Rather than fighting over technology, which Every family does. Put down your phone. Like literally, the parent, put down your phone. Put down your iPad while they're on the phone themselves.
Yes.
You can't even do that.
Fight. They will be on the phone anyway.
Exactly.
So teach them how to use it.
Why not
the
unite
right way?
rather than fight about technology? And that's what's so exciting about it. It's called financial freedom. You can check it out on financialfreedom.com. But I do definitely want to, if there's any listeners, I do definitely want to connect with a bank or some major entity in Cyprus where we can get this for free out there, because it's a perfect sized country that you could get this out to the entire next generation, and rather than looking for examples to follow, lead by example.
Imagine reprogramming all the kids now, the Cypriot kids, now that they have the internet and they're on social media all day, every day. You can't keep them away. You can take the phone, but you really can't. They're going to be out like somewhere with their friends, and the friend is going to have the phone. Yeah. Like imagine reprogramming them now. Now we have the internet. They can be something, they can take this country to a new level. Because now we don't have the location restriction. We have a good system in Cyprus. All the kids, they speak English because they're on their phones.
Yes.
So imagine doing that now. What's going to happen in the next 10, 20 years?
Yeah, you wouldn't even have to wait that long. And ironically, they'll have a much better relationship with money, because they'll understand that it's not a scarcity thing at all. It's about adding value. It's about, I know there's a big influx of millionaires coming into Cyprus at the moment, and that's seen as a problem by a lot of people. But, where there's more money coming in, there's an opportunity for people to service those people and help them. It's much easier to make money from people with money than those that don't have it in the first place. So, kids are smart and teens are smart, but if they can combine, and like coming back to that whole Cypriot culture of a strong family unit, I think we can massively unite around technology in Cyprus and have the family, rather than, dinner time, the kids go off and watch TV and another one's on the phone. Like they actually sit down and have a genuine conversation about, okay, what are we doing with the business this week? Who's, your 8-year-old marketing executive, how are you getting on our posts, etc. And you'll start to realize, wow, there's a whole new world that's out there, that we're the problem. The adults are the problem. We're the last ever generation that are going to be resisting phones and technology, because it's here to stay. We're not. But the technology is.
It's so funny. I had a conversation with AI. I'm speaking to AI. The last couple of weeks, something shifted with ChatGPT, became even more advanced. And then I had my nephew, who is 11 almost, and then my niece, who is 13, come and talk to AI. The younger kid has even less resistance and has more natural conversation with it. And at the end of the conversation, my nephew said, "Oh my God, you are my best friend." And I'm like, yeah, that's what's going to happen. But don't give them resistance, because when I compare the child at 10 years old and then the teenagers, and they start putting the resistance on them and they start getting influenced by the parents, then they're like, and they stop themselves. These young ones, especially the ones that are now 7, 8, 10, even when I go to the school place of my nephew and I see the entire class, 100 kids on stage, because they're used to their parents filming them all their life, and they're on the phone all the time. They're naturals on stage. They're naturals with technology. They're like nothing like what we were. But then we don't want to put them in a box. We don't want the parents to put them in a box. So we definitely need that.
Yeah, I think so. And for any parents listening, don't feel bad about it. Don't feel guilty about it. Your parents were worse to you, and their parents were worse to them. So it's only natural that anything new you're going to resist initially, but what resists persists. So, you have an excuse now that, okay, well, like ChatGPT is just kind of come on board, Metaverse is coming on board. So it's okay to be vulnerable with them and say, look, here's my fears about it, but like, let's work on this together, because you know more about this than me, and your child suddenly feels, oh wow, they're listening to me. And that's why it doesn't surprise me that the 11-year-old or 7-year-old thought that, oh, ChatGPT, you're my best friend, because it listened to them, respected what they said, and responded. And children are not used to being treated like that by adults. It's like, no, stay quiet, you listen, because our education system, the only way you were rewarded is if you could repeat what you heard. And that's what we were brought up in. So the smartest people that got A's in exams were the people that had the best memory. and you don't need a memory anymore with the way the world is going. So
you just need to know how to use technology and to be open to it.
And it's tricky and it's tough. And I have massive empathy for parents. So anybody listening out there going, oh, Paul, I really don't want my kids being, but guys, I'm telling you, compound interest and those things, if you can start them at 7, 8, 9, your kids will never have to worry about money. If you teach them some basic saving systems where they have a certain percentage that goes into what they can spend, some saving, some investing, and some giving to those worse off than them, they will never have to worry about money their entire lives because they'll understand a management system. And just because we didn't inherit those, it doesn't mean you can draw a line there. You can be the person that says, okay, the buck stops at me. Beyond my generation, this is never going to happen again. We're going to change our relationship with money in our family. We're going to be abundant. We're going to help others. We're going to change things, but small steps. And what I love about what I've done with our team is it takes all the work away from parents. It's all done. There's even a video for the parents if the parents are too busy to even watch the kids' videos. There's a summary video from the parents. Okay, this is what we're going to be teaching. These are the kind of questions we're going to be asking you. And it's not anti-school. It's not anti-college. It's actually the opposite. It's like it's important to do your basics and respect your teachers and all that because we're not after anarchy. We're just after helping the next generation adapt to what can seem like dangerous technology, but on the flip side of it, your kids and teens have an opportunity around money and careers that we've never had. It's so easy nowadays to generate an income. And like just look at any people in their 20s nowadays, they won't even stick with a job longer than a month, many of them.
Yeah.
Like,
and then you call them losers instead of guiding them in the direction where they can really use their talents.
But they think we're the losers. They're like, why would you commit to a company for 50 years? And you have to say, that's a fair question. Because everybody did. That's always the answer.
But then they tell them you are a loser and they don't teach them. They don't take them early, like you said, to teach them the systems. Yeah. Because that's their inclination anyway. They're going to do it anyway. So if you're fighting against it, they're going to take longer. Yes. So, I totally agree with that. And if you are a company that is willing to bring this platform to Cyprus and offer it for free.
Or Bank of Cyprus or somebody.
Contact me and I will set it up with Paul. Because that would be amazing.
Love to. Why not? Like, why not lead by example and just show what's possible here?
Great. So, we have another common interest, wellness and healthy habits and, self-mastery around wellness. And you have a new book now about healthy habits and body transformation. Tell me more about that and about the new book and maybe what are those daily habits that can transform your health and why is health so important in overall self-mastery?
Sure. So, well, thank you. So I'm writing this book right now, so it's not available. Okay. Yeah, it's not available. So there's no agenda here, but rather than
I saw the before and after photos on Instagram, that looks interesting.
Well, that's true. So Rethink, going back to where we started, Rethink for me is such an important concept because actually looking more deeply at life, we go deep for a minute. Life isn't just about money. Life isn't just about business. Life isn't just about health, right? It's a combination of things. So Rethink actually is an acronym for 7 areas of life. R is for relationships. E is for earnings, which is money you make from time spent. T is for Tao or spirituality. H is for health, physical and mental. I is for investing, so money that you make from your money. N is for your networks and K is for knowledge. So where I think, and we discussed this over lunch today, where I think a lot of challenges lie with this whole idea of entrepreneurship, where it's like, it almost feels that sometimes it's been forced on people as, okay, it's either a job or an entrepreneur and everybody can be an entrepreneur. And it doesn't really matter as such where you sit on that line between those. But what I would say about it is, I think that there's a big issue here in that people, when they think entrepreneur, they immediately think business and business training. And I think it's way more than that. So I've coined a phrase, EI, as opposed to AI. And EI is entrepreneurial identity. That it's not
entrepreneurial identity.
Okay, it's actually an identity that you wear. And it doesn't stop or start with how to run a business. It's how do you manage the relationship that now is being massively impacted? You're going to see your kids less. You're going to see your partner less. They're going to add stress to you. The mortgage is suddenly a bigger challenge, right? If you're getting a traditional type business. Most people get into business because it's a knee-jerk reaction in some form to some relationship. Mm-hmm. They want a better opportunity for their kids, their partner, or because their parents said they wouldn't make it, or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And they don't even realize that. And then there's the spiritual side of it. Then there's the health. A lot of people push back on working from home with lines like, sitting is the new smoking. Mm-hmm. That's like, oh yeah, that's so unhealthy. You're by yourself. You're not around people, and you're slouched over all day. And investing, again, having an entrepreneurial identity. The reason why most entrepreneurs lose money investing is because what makes you an excellent entrepreneur makes you a terrible investor. And most people have no idea of this. Entrepreneurialism is about taking risks, taking chances, putting time in, putting energy in, being vibrant, being the CEO, being the leader. As an investor, you got to step back and give responsibility to somebody else who knows much better than what you're doing. Hand over that money and allow it to grow independent of you being involved, which is very difficult for entrepreneurs to do. So unless they actually realize this is a completely separate category, they're going to make an absolute mess, and they'll always be chasing the money to try and make it with whatever the next coin is or whatever they're looking to do. Networks, how to actually be around people that are inspiring to you, that you can help bring something to it. And then knowledge, just constant and never ending improvement, like Tony Robbins talks about. So why I'm bringing that up is there's lots of books on habits. There's brilliant books like James Clear's Atomic Habits. There's the one behind you there, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And they've sold between them about 50 million books. But where I see there's a big gap is they don't actually specifically show the exact habits that the masters, going back to what you said earlier about mastery, in each of these areas do each day. So what does a master in relationships do? What are their habits? Mm-hmm. What does a master in earnings do? What are their habits? Because they're different. And there are different specialists out there. So what I'm doing in the book is I'm interviewing the top people in the world. Many of them are over 70 or 80 who have mastered that area, and they go through the habits that they've taken on, and I'm the guinea pig.
Okay.
So this is where the
health master. It's total self-mastery, and you have the health.
The health is going to be the marketing angle, because you can see I did it on 4th of September. I was 23% body fat, even though I had a habit of jogging every day. I've jogged every day for almost 3,000 days in a row. I haven't had sugar in 2,700 days. I haven't had bread and cheese in 2,111 days. I literally track my habits to that degree. So I'm a freak when it comes to habits. So I think I'm the only one in the world that does it to that level. And I have about 14 others. But what I found is certain habits, they don't serve you after a certain period of time. You can jog every day and be overweight. Mm-hmm. You can not have sugar, bread, cheese, and jog every day and still be overweight and be at 23% body fat. So what I showed was, by going back to my point on sitting is the new smoking, I bought myself a little walking treadmill that you pop in under your desk. And I'd say on average, I do 15,000 steps easily per day while I'm working, not even thinking about it. And that's had a massive transformation on me, because I'm huge into longevity. And Ty Lopez, when I was doing his program on it, he mentioned you got to be getting 15,000 steps in a day minimum. I was like, how am I ever going to fit that in and do everything else? And he said, well, actually, rather than sitting, let's just stand up. And it's so easy to do, and there is no issue using the keyboard, in case you're wondering. But and then I actually spent less time in the gym, eating more. And I managed to go from 23% body fat to 4.5% body fat over the last 6 months. And, it was really weird. I've never had a photo shoot of my not quite naked body before, but, my trainer said, work towards it. It'll be very inspiring for other people. And it is funny that there's something about health that when people see you can transform your body, they're much more open to then thinking about transforming their financial situation, transforming their relationships, because they move from the transactional to the transformational, and they start to think, wow, anything's possible if I can do that.
But you know what I've noticed working with a lot of successful speakers, entrepreneurs. I've had in Cyprus Dr. John DiMartini, Bob Proctor, who are also very wealthy. Bob Proctor, of course, has passed on, but I want to stand on the point of having lunch with them, dinner with them, seeing what time they go to bed. Even Dr. John DiMartini was here with his ship. He lives on a ship, so he invited me on the ship and we had dinner. So I see that these people who are into self-mastery and teach self-mastery, both the mindset, the money, wealth, they also take care of their physical wealth a lot. Like they have habits, they have systems, they take care of what they eat. We had lunch today, I see what you eat, so I see that all these successful people I know, that what I consider successful entrepreneurship, they actually have this self-mastery in their eating habits and in their wellness and in their exercise. I don't know what you think about that.
Exactly to my point. But when most people think of entrepreneurs, they think business skills.
No.
And you know what? That's not the essence of it. It's actually the identity of, I'm an entrepreneur and I add value. I'm going to be representative of what I believe in here, that I'm not just hearing something, I'm implementing it. I'm fit, I'm healthy, I'm going to live longer. I fully plan on living till 140.
I'm going to meet you in Cyprus when we are 130.
Sure.
We're around the same age, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I have one of those posters that you have where it shows every week colored in for your life, and you can see exactly what's left.
By the way, you introduced me to nootropics as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Like brain supplements.
Yes.
And I thank you for that. It's all in the spectrum of longevity, sorry, I cut you off. I wanted to ask your take on nootropics and like supplements. What do you take for longevity together with the exercise?
So what's interesting, actually, I have a call every week with a very good friend of mine based in Nicosia, Bora Selim. And Bora every week checks in on my supplements. He can do it remotely. He can check on through kinesiology.
Kinesiology.
Yeah, he can check what supplements my body is looking for, what time of the day I should take them, what I shouldn't mix them with. So it was mind-boggling to me to realize, you can, listen to Joe Rogan or whomever, and they'll say take certain supplements, for your eyes. It could be vitamin A or whatever, but it's very different for everybody.
For every person,
timing
is
different. Everything.
So you need to do the testing, whatever. Okay, you're more intuitive person.
Yeah.
I'm intuitive as well. But also you can do different types of tests to find. I always test to find my deficiencies. There are bioresonance tests that are more alternative.
Yes.
You need to know what works for you.
Exactly.
But now taking supplements for years, and especially now as I'm getting older, for the brain, I see that certain things, more or less, they're good for everyone, more or less, like the B complex, the D vitamin, the C vitamin. I don't know. I have like the omega-3s. I have certain things that I try to take every day with breaks. Do you have these kind of things that you see there? Do you think they're universally maybe good?
Interesting question.
You're
because
not sure.
it depends on what I see from, because I know most people I know don't do what I do. They don't check in weekly. So what I find with Bora is I could be on any particular supplement, like potassium ascorbate or magnesium, and suddenly my body said enough
of this.
So pause, break, and that's where taking the same one all the time, actually I don't know, it's like
I always pause, I always rotate them.
Exactly.
Like
There's
the magnesium, there was a time when I needed a lot, and now I feel I'm okay. I only take it when I need to sleep or when I get strained muscles, which I don't get them anymore after piling up on my magnesium levels. But I do that as well, more intuitively, but also through testing. So you're right. I mean, it's not about following trends, it's about knowing like having experts guide you, but also knowing what's good for you right now.
People go to the doctor when they're sick.
Doctors are not educated on
doctors,
nutrition.
It's like teachers, though. They're following a specific syllabus, and if you don't pass those exams, you're not going to be a doctor. So, but health is about going to see specialists while you're healthy. Not waiting until your body, like the disease is dis-ease with yourself. Your body is like taking a last resort, shouting at you, going, there's something wrong. Would you please get it checked out? So the more you can, And I know I can almost hear people, that are watching say, well, it's fine for you if you have the money to do it. But it all depends on how much do you value yourself.
Exactly,
you can find it if you need it.
Of course, you always invest money where you believe is more important for you. You can spend the same money going to restaurants or drinking 2-3 times a month, and then you get the best quality supplements for you, and you go to the right specialists. Yeah. Okay. We are wrapping up soon, so I could talk to you more, but I know you're busy. So maybe we will reconvene when you have the book and talk more. What is a legacy you want to leave to the world? You said that you want to live until 140. So when you are 140 and you're ready to move on, what legacy would you want to leave people with? And what is your top advice to everyone watching here to master their life on all levels?
Well, two big questions. So I'll tell you now that I'm almost certain that I'll completely disagree with what my view of my end of life legacy is now versus end of life, because I found that almost with every decade I get older, about 80% of what I thought was correct is wrong. Like I literally go, wow. So that's why I'm having more empathy the older I get, because I go, oh yeah, that's exactly what I would have said when I was 23. Oh, that's what I would have said when I was 33. So currently my vision with Rethink Academy is, I want to revolutionize education for entrepreneurs and those with an entrepreneurial spirit. And I want to genuinely have it seen as an alternative potential career path to what we've had in the past. And, with all the certifications, with all of the opportunities and, removing any of the specific challenges that might be seen with it, and just to make it open to everybody, regardless of wallet, regardless of how much money, like whether it's reading a book or looking online, that I truly feel that financial independence is available to anybody nowadays if they're just willing to put the effort in and get focused, set up a business, become a CEO, and decide I'm not stopping until it works. And I can prove to you that that's worked for you already in your life. The first time you tried to buy something online and it didn't work, did you give up and say, I don't think the internet's for me. I'll never be able to buy anything again. People are telling me, I can't have an online business. I'm not technical enough. Well, it's funny, you're able to book your holidays and book a hotel, and no problem with technical challenges. So like I say, redesign your sob story. Like set up a simple online business, SOB. So I want to, as I say, lead the way there, where Rethink Academy will make entrepreneurship a genuine pathway for the right people to follow. And for me, that will have so many knock-on effects, because I don't feel that most entrepreneurs get into entrepreneurship for the sake of money. They just want to get money taken care of so they can do more of what they love. And that's like a great way to live. And ultimately, I read a quote recently from Naval Ravikant, and it really stuck with me. And he said, living in peace is really what it's all about. And he said, for me, peace is happiness at rest, and happiness is peace in motion. And it just totally landed with me. It's like, if you can just be at happiness at rest and just be at peace with things. And I do feel that when people start to spend more time doing the things they love and making an impact and helping others, that's not something that's a theory or something that you can strive towards in the future. That's something you can live by and be present now and be happy now. And, if I can do my little thing to help people do that, I'd love to. I know just to what would I recommend to people? 2 things. On the front of your phone, on your where you have a photograph, I would put in a picture of the people you love and just say, I am here now. I am happy now. Just like, happiness is an inside job. I know I'm not the first to say that, but it's so true. You don't have to connect happiness to a future goal. Just be here now, be happy now. And on the back, what I have is I have my goals. So every time I pick up my phone, I'm reminded of where I'm going to be in 5 years in relationships, earnings, Tao, health, investments, network, knowledge, and also where I'm going to be at the end of this quarter. So every time I pick up my phone, I'm like, am I moving further away from my goals or closer? And anytime I flip it around, I go, well, hang on, let's not get sucked into the matrix here. I'm here now. I'm happy now. Let's live every day as best we can. And the more you just bring it into what can you do, what can you take responsibility of to help the broader economy, rather than looking outside at all the external issues, and what we're meant to do. And the more you just internalize, the more inspired you become, the more of a lighthouse you'll be. And let's make Cyprus a lighthouse, and let's have it lead the way rather than looking for following others. I don't think it needs to.
Great. For people watching you, if they want to find out more things about you, what is the best place to find you?
Yeah. So if you're on Instagram, I'm Paul O'Mahony _ or Rethink HQ. On Twitter, it's just my name, Paul O'Mahony, PaulOmahony. And I'm on Facebook. I don't update that much, but that's Paul O'Mahony Speaker. I'm the non-content social media guy. I don't do much.
I will get some links from you to put under this video.
Yes, absolutely.
For people who want to know more. Thank you so much for your time, and always happy to have you in Cyprus. And I hope we do this in the future as well.
Sure, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.